Hello. In this video, I will show you how to resize images and stack them and move them around to create our final image, which will look like this. So in the previous videos, we pulled in the images we want to use in Photoshop, and we clipped them out in separate layers. And now we're just about ready to stack them and make our final image. Now the one thing that we still need to do is resize the images. As you can see in the final result, the Times Square is a lot bigger and the ball and the hamster are a lot smaller than they appear in this image. So let's look at how to resize images. The first thing I'm going to do is stack the layers so they're in the proper order. Notice that my Times Square image is above the ball image. I want it behind the ball image, so I'm going to drag the Times Square layer down below the ball. Notice that the blue line appears, and that's where the layer will drop. Again, if you don't see your layer window on the right-hand side of your Photoshop screen, make sure to click on Window and go to Layers to make sure the checkbox is showing. I now have my layers in the proper order. Times Square is on the bottom, then the ball, and then the hamster. And I'll rename the hamster layer, so I have another cue that it's the hamster layer. And the first thing I'll do is resize the Times Square image. So make sure you're clicked on the proper layer, in this case Times Square. And you can find the image transformation function in your edit menu. A lot easier is to press Command and T on your keyboard, and that will take you right to free transform. About halfway down your edit menu, you can see the command free transform. Shortcut is Command T. So in my Times Square layer, I'll click Command T, and you'll see a little box now surrounding the Times Square image. And if I click and drag on one of the corners, it will resize the image. Now what I want to do is, you can also move the image when it's in free transform. So I'm going to move it so it's in the corner, and I think I'll cut some of the corner off and resize it. Now, really important, if you run into a situation where you start getting to the edge and it gets a little confusing, notice that my mouse is now over my windows. If you don't like that, what you can do is press on the zoom tool, and that's your bottom tool just below the hand. And if you press Alt on your keyboard, it'll zoom out. So press Alt and then your mouse, it'll zoom out. And if you let go of Alt, it will zoom in. So that's the Alt function on your keyboard. Press that and your mouse with the zoom tool, and you can zoom in and out of your image. Another way to zoom in and out is to press Command and plus or minus. So Command and minus will zoom out, Command and plus will zoom in. And if you're using that function of zooming, then you don't even have to click on the zoom tool. You can stay in free transform. So I'm in free transform, and if I hit Command minus or Command plus, it'll zoom in and out. So let's zoom out a bit so we can see the entire image. And again, I'll grab one of the corners, and I want it to fill up the entire original image size in Photoshop. I can also move it a little bit. There we go. So I now have the Times Square image sized to where I want it. And I hit Enter on my keyboard, and that finalizes the new size. Now I want to reduce the size of the ball and the hamster. Same process, click on the ball layer. Again, make sure you're clicked on the proper layer. Command T, grab a corner, and resize it. And you can also move it. And hit Enter when you're ready to complete. Lastly, we'll do the hamster. Click on the hamster layer, Command T, resize. And one thing about the free transform tool is it can do lots of other things besides resize. So I'm going to zoom in a bit here, Command and plus. And if I go just off the edge of one of the corner points on the resize function, so if I'm right on the edge, it resizes it. If I go a little bit off the edge, notice I get that funny little arrow. It's like a half of a U-turn. And then if I click and circulate my mouse, I can rotate the image. So there's a lot of things you can do with the free transform tool. I encourage you to check it out. If you right click in the box, you'll see a lot of different ways that you can warp the image. So there's distort, skew, rotate, and scale, which we've looked at. Perspective, warp is really fun. Lots of different things you can use. But in this case, I just need to resize it and rotate it just a little bit. And notice this little foot is in front of the ball. I actually want that behind the ball. So after I've resized it by pressing enter, I will move the hamster layer below the ball. And now that little foot there is behind the ball, and that's the way I like it. And there you go. There's our hamster rolling the rainbow basketball through Times Square during the coronavirus quarantine. In the next video, I'll show you how to save this file so that you can upload it to anywhere you want, and it'll be more easily viewable. I'll see you there.